I actually have a slide that's perfect for you in a second. So, topic of the presentation, Siri, are you listening to me? Of course, I personally don't like Apple phones, so Gemini, and maybe Alexa. And if there's anybody who uses Grok, that includes that. So, TLDR, no. Well, maybe. That's it. End of my talk. You can go now if you want. That would be a bit boring. The reason why I'm doing this talk is I've had this as a rant for many years where people come across and say, I've had this advert and it's about this thing that was doing and my phone is listening to me. I literally wrote this. I was in a course for something totally unrelated. And somebody brought this up, and it was like, and they say how they were going to a holiday and then suddenly got all these adverts to these holiday locations come up. And, this is hence why I wrote the rant. Originally, I was going to do this with somebody who actually knows a bit about psychology. So, unfortunately they had to drop out and I had to do this myself and I know nothing about psychology. So some people may pick holes in this. Anyway, the old joke. This is the earliest version of the joke of it I could find. Basically, if anybody's... Sorry, it's like, my wife asked me why I spoke so softly in the house. I said I was afraid if Mark Zuckerberg was laughing. She laughed, I laughed, Alexa laughed, Siri laughed. It's a sort of postmodernist nightmare that everything is listening to you. There will be AI-generated photos. I just love, in fact, I don't know whether you can see this one. There's a solitary finger on here. AI still cannot do fingers. It's getting better, but we're still getting there. Oh, my notes. I've already said what's in my notes. So, do people have assistants in their house? Yep, I can see some nods. I have assistants. The house I have, all my children in the attic room. I don't want to stand at the bottom of the stairs and shout, "Children!" because it knackers my voice. So I have a couple of Google Mini speakers in each of their rooms. And as I discovered today whilst preparing this, they also use it to communicate with each other and normally swear at each other. So when I get home tomorrow, my kids are in trouble. And they ask some very dodgy questions. So, anyway, yeah. So we use that for that. We have actually one of those Google speaker systems in there. We use that for music in the kitchen because it acts as a decent radio and it's a lot easier way than actually having a radio ourselves. The way most of these work is they constantly listen for a key phrase. Hey Google. Actually, I experiment I want to try. Siri, play. No, what is 1 + 1? Nope, nobody's got Siri working.
Well, my Siri works, but I just, Hey Siri is disabled.
Yeah, I mean, my phone, it allegedly copies my voice. I don't know whether it works or not. I try not to do it. It's like my Google Wallet. I have to unlock my phone to use it because I don't trust the world. But I use it in my car more regularly because I use Android Auto as I drive. It allows me to choose my location through voice. And again, going back through my history today, I kept seeing all the places I go to. It's just because it's quicker than trying to type it in on my car. So here's an example. This is the history of my son has smart lights in his room, and he likes to sit in his bed and turn them off by saying, "Hey Google, turn off my lights." And this is him messing about with the colours. So disco mode. I don't know what disco mode is. And this is where I discovered exactly what they've been sent. Sorry, my phone keeps buzzing now. I shouldn't be looking at my watch. And he keeps sending off different conversations with them and interesting questions. So dodgy statements. This is, if you dig further into these, you can actually see your recordings that it makes. So this is one of those recordings, and we can break that into 2 bits. We have the key phrase, "Hey Google," which it records for you, and we have the actual action command, and I can't remember what it was. I think this was show disco lights. So we can see what Google allows me to see that it does. We don't know how much it tracks beforehand. Normally it will listen for the key phrase and then it will take the rest in of the audio and offload it onto the cloud. So, obviously this question is my phone listening to me for ads is a very common question. That's, I did that a couple of days ago. There's loads of ones and you can see 2004, you go back, they go all the way back to 2017, 2016 when people have been first asking. I wrote about this in 2014, a not very good one about article. I've learned better how to write. Cause I kept seeing adverts for places that I was about to go to. Cause I do a lot of on-site work. I kept seeing hotel adverts. So I did a dive into how this is working. And back in 2016, I wrote an application that would do this. It would constantly listen in the background, send all the audio it heard off to Google servers, and translate into real worlds. It got on BBC Click at one point. It was even mentioned in Mitnick's Art of Invisibility and a little footnote. So that's my claim to fame. I've been in a Mitnick book. And Ken, who is sort of my boss at work, who always gets in, always takes all my, all the things I do. So I'm going to go into a minor, sorry. I apologize. I only wrote this like a couple of hours ago. So anyway, technically it is possible to do this. Is it feasible though? Can we legally do this? Can we logistically do it? Are there any social constructs that get in the way? Why, if it can't do this, why do I get ads about stuff I talk about? Why do I see an advert for something mentioned? So, I'm going to go on a bit of a segue here and go on about my first ever solo talk that I did back in 10 years ago in RVASEC back in 2015. This is, a security con set up in Richmond, Virginia by a couple of people I knew. I entered the CFP. I flew from InfoSec Europe where I set up a demo. I was knackered on my flight. I got a red-eye flight. I landed there. I went to do my talk. I had a certain evil device, which I'll show in a second, which is meant to be listening to noise. And it failed and that buggered up my talk. And I went through my whole talk slides in 15 minutes because it upset me because I'd plugged the audio jack into my laptop, into the speakers. So the whole device, and this evil device is one of those. I was going to bring one with me, but I forgot to put it in my bag. Furbies. Now, this is a 2016 variant. When they first came out everybody takes a picture of a Furby. I nicked that from the internet, okay? You can Google it. Back in 1998 when the Furby came out, there was a rumor that it would listen to everything you say and it would start to record what you stated and play it back to you. Because there was a sequence in the Furby logic where it would get better and it would learn more of its language, Furbish. And it would get better with generations and would get better. So much so, oh yeah, and we have Furby with ears. Now that's one bit I did do, I added the ears. So, I'm sorry, it's an electronic toy, and eventually, rumors when it got down to one, it was banned by in the NSA, and it was banned in a shipyard in Richmond in Virginia. This is a story that I nicked from FAA.gov, which explains about it. Naval Shipyard in Portsmouth, Virginia. Tiger Electronics, who are the manufacturers, said it cannot listen. Question is, can a Furby do it? Question about this one is, what do we mean by speech recognition? So speech recognition has been around since the 1950s. This is a box generated in 1961 by IBM, which could do basic speech recognition of the numbers from 1 to 10 and allow you to do things like, what is 2 plus 2? So it is not new technology. So can we sort of do this? Here's what a speech wave looks like. I've not done a full spectrogram. This is just the pitch ones. So over here is time and against the actual amplitude up here. So This is me saying the numbers 1 through 4. I'm not going to play it because it's me going 1, 2, 3, 4. I could write a very easy bit of program. I could even get AI to write a bit of program to match all those for me. It'll match for me. It won't match for you. It won't match for anybody else. It won't match me if I say it in falsetto. It won't match me if I change because the timbre is different. So it generally uses something called Markov hidden. I always get this wrong. Hidden Markov models. I stole that from Wikipedia. I don't even pretend to understand it. I have a degree in physics. I do not understand the maths behind it. So this is what it does, and it breaks it down, and so on. So in the processing of it, if we think we've got to try, if a Furby can store this data, how much sort of memory do you think we'll need for doing this? And how much memory does a Furby have? Any guess at how much memory a Furby has?
16 kilobytes.
Optimistic. I like it. Certain sample you wouldn't get much in 16 kilobytes. I have written a program that would speak out on an 8-bit computer, and it took most of the 64 kilobytes of memory it had just for my sample. What you have in a Furby is a simpler CPU, which is 652 alike. You have 80 kilobytes of RAM, 80 bytes of RAM, 80 kilobytes of ROM, 80 bytes of RAM, and an EPROM of 512 bytes. That is your memory. Can a Furby record information? No, it's not feasible, is it? Not unless they're really, really good writing. So last bit of the whole Furby conversation is it was discovered somebody found the patent for the Furby, and the patent had the source code attached. So people have gone through this. We know how every single byte of the RAM, it works. It has a microphone. The microphone's used as a simple yes, no indicator. That's all. It just says there is noise. So the only solution of what you can do with a Furby, has anybody seen my avatar on everything? That's about the only thing left. And I do apologize for the resolution. That photo was taken in 2003. Cameras have improved a lot since then. We were drunk. We had a Furby. What else are you going to do? So, I'm not allowed to burn a Furby here, or as I would have done. Anyway, on to other sides. Let's have a look at the legal side. So for this, I am not a lawyer. I know some basics about the Computer Misuse Act and other things because it's part of my job. So I actually spoke to a lawyer, this guy here, Neil Brown, who runs Decoded.legal. He's tech-savvy lawyer who runs everything on Linux, and his privacy is one of his ones. So I spent half an hour having a conversation with him where we just discussed what the actual legal requirements is. There is pretty much one law that will affect this in the UK, and that's GDPR. So it's no surprise it's GDPR. And normally I don't like word-heavy slides, but this one is word-heavy because I wanted just to get everything in. So the main requirements are transparency, fairness, and a lawful basis. Just stepping out of your way. Do we tell people that we listen to them? Do we have a privacy notice? Who reads privacy notices? Oh wow, there's more of you who actually do that. I'm crap, I don't have the time. How many people send it to AI and ask them to summarize it? I like it. Yes. That's the lazy way of doing it. Is it fair for an advertising company to listen into your private conversations? Now, an ad company could argue yes, because that's their revenue. I'm not a lawyer. That would be precedent in the court. There has been no precedence on this. Lawful basis, we have legitimate interest, which we all see on the cookie notification banners, and there are various arguments about whether they use legitimate interest properly. So the legitimate interest is does the company have a legitimate interest in getting that information from you? Does it balance with your rights as a consumer? They're still shrug. Nobody's actually tried this in the court of law at the moment. So, and the final one is, have we got consent? People like Google, and Apple and Siri, etc., you have to tick a consent button when you actually do this. You don't think you have, but you have done. I went through the process of turning my phone to Gemini, and yes, you have to give Google consent for you to process. Things have been tried before. This was the end of March 2025. O'Carroll versus Meta decided where O'Carroll noticed that she was pregnant, and Meta started serving ads for pregnancy even before she told people that she was pregnant. She successfully sued Meta. And yeah, how much it was, the ICO made a statement. So if you don't know, ICO is a government watchdog that is Information Commissioner watchdog that actually covers all this. They made a statement. That statement pretty much says nothing. It just says, yeah, you can read that yourself. It really doesn't say much. Apple have settled 95 million. That was 2024 about Siri listening. There was a company called Cox Media Group who did a pitch deck for active listening, which is exactly what I'm describing here, where they would listen to what your conversations and they would serve ads depending on that one. It's, as far as we can tell, it's only a pitch deck. They might have done a few proof of concepts. Who knows whether they'd actually gone into one. But this has set Apple and Google, they now have this monitoring light to say this microphone is active. So Android we have on the left, iOS, which is a less good one, on the right. Where it's in theory, you should always be able to see that. Right, there's going to be quite a bit of segue in this. Let's go into another segue. Has anybody heard of Red Army Faction? There's always one. And I don't mean that Red Faction. I'm obviously the only person who plays crap computer games from the 2008. That's actually Red Army Guerrilla. I mentally get the two mixed up. That Red Army Faction. Red Army Faction was a far left, it's described as far left militant group, terrorism group basically, who were responsible for a number of domestic terrorist acts within Germany, including bombings, assassinations, kidnappings and shootouts leading to the deaths of at least 34 people. They were basically wanting communism to be applied to West Germany as well as East Germany during the 1970s and 1980s. You're going to ask now, what has this got to do with my subject? They are also known by two of the founders, which is Andreas Baader and Ulrike Meinhof, and I apologize to anybody who's German here for my pronunciation, which led to the alternative name of the Baader-Meinhof gang, which is a term that you may have heard. So this has led to what we call the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon. I can't say it. Phenomenon. A thing. The Baader-Meinhof thing. That word up there, phenomenon. Which was found when Terry Mullin wrote a letter to the press where he had a conversation about the Baader-Meinhof group, and then he kept seeing the term Baader-Meinhof appear. And it wasn't because he wrote the letter, it's just that human brain is amazing that we are very good at pattern recognition. It's something also known as a frequency illusion. So this is where we see a topic, and we just keep picking it out. So if, for example, I said, after Kat's keynote today where she was going on about Pop-Tarts, next time you're on the serial aisle, you're going to see Pop-Tarts because your brain's triggered that and you'll see that word keeps popping up. As a reverse engineer, I see this a lot. I can look at a hex dump and I can pull information out. It's human pattern matching is brilliant. But Baader-Meinhof doesn't cover everything. I live in an old Victorian house, and living in an old Victorian house is a problem. Everybody who's living there, you've got a problem with cool air and water. And one of the ways of doing this is to open windows. And there was a term that I randomly found on the internet a couple of, it was shown to me one of the lists of Sturzelüften. And again, apologies for my German, which is apparently an act where the Germans open all the windows, let all the air in, blow all the air out, and in theory, get rid of all the moisture in the air. So I kept bloody seeing this term for 2 months, and I kept seeing this term everywhere. It was like the wife saw it as well, and it's like, where the hell has this come from? So I assumed this was Bader Meinhof. So I went and actually looked at Google Trends, and nope. Apparently the whole internet, a little peak around the end of 2004, where this term got into national consciousness, then disappeared again. So you can't just always say frequency illusion. It's sometimes we see other things and somehow. So I'm going to go off to another segue because I like segues. Anybody know about the TV license? Are we all in England here? Anybody? Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't live in the UK, you have to have a TV license to watch broadcast television. And I'm not going to talk about the TV license. I'm going to talk about its enforcement. I lived for 10 years without a TV. I got so many letters from the TV licensing about this. And you have a bit of an Orwellian thing where they have our database lists every home with a TV license, which is quite freaky. But again, I'm not talking about that. I'm going to talk about TV licensing vans, which was something that was broadcast about in the 60s, that these TV license vans would drive round and they'd pick up when you're watching TV, and they could pinpoint exactly where your TV is on a row of terraced houses and what you were watching and so on. Do TV license vans exist? Yeah?
Actually, there was a request for a named report.
Yeah.
Somebody made a Freedom of Information Act request, and they do exist, but the BBC, well, named capital, wouldn't say exactly how many times they have been used to prosecute people for non-payment. So, perhaps they are just vans painted with TV license, some sticker on, and they probably.
Yeah, so that's exactly what you said there. So there is a Freedom of Information request. It came back, Capita said, there are TV detector vans. We won't tell you any more information because we call it exemption of the Freedom of Information Act. When you had CRTVs, it's easy to detect something. Who has a CRTV anymore? Of course, Glenn has one. There's always one. Actually, I have a load in my garage, but that's irrelevant. Nowadays, you can detect your SCRs. Likelihood of that happening, minimal. So there's a principle called Occam's razor, which says the simplest solution is generally the easiest one. So for TV license fan, does it exist? Or is it the fact that they just have a database of everybody and they just send a bloke round? Actually, sorry, that was sexist. I do apologise. They send somebody round. Just to say, knock on the door and say, do you have a TV? I personally believe that's the way they do it. So I'm actually ahead of my slides for once, which is very good. So in conclusion, because you could tell I was getting near the end of writing my slides at this point, technically, devices can and do listen in. It's not difficult to do. I wrote a program in what you would call vibe coding in 2016, which is basically Stack Overflow. And you could do it, but there's no indications on phone. Legally, which they shouldn't be able to do without notification, and there should be a privacy policy to protect you. Is it worth it? Speech processing is expensive. You can't do it on phone. You have to offload it to the cloud, which means you need a persistent internet connection. Do we notice patterns? So we got the frequency illusion. Do we notice when it doesn't happen? As an example, I took my family to Copenhagen for holiday last year. I typed in multiple times in Google Copenhagen to find things in there to do. I didn't get any ads about Copenhagen. I spoke about it many times in front of multiple listening devices. No ads. And I was looking. So, and finally, Occam's razor. Is it likely for this to happen? So, and that's why my conclusion is maybe. So, there we are.
Thank you very much. So, questions? You miserable lot? Oh, good. One. Right.
There's always
get the ball rolling.
although is that
Move it closer to your mouth.
really close? No. Although that covers us in EU and GDPR,
Yeah.
UK DPA, what about other countries? Because, there's been instances where North American law enforcement have gone to certainly AWS or Amazon, for Siri, because there was that case where
Yes.
a person was murdered around a swimming pool or a hot tub, and they got the evidence from that about the arguments, although the words weren't used.
That was
Is
the
it
one.
possible the technology really exists, but we have privacy protections in Europe to stop it being used?
There was a reason why I chose phones rather than assistants. As you can see from the list, there was a keyword and so on. There was a case where Amazon were found, on this. I didn't put that on because there were too many slides of just court cases. So yes, it is likely. In terms of what the legal status is, I'm not a lawyer. I'd have to talk to somebody and I can't afford that.
More questions? Yes, coming your way. Hold on a minute. I'm just walking around.
Sorry, I need to cough and I...
Talk amongst yourself. Hello, I'm here.
Hello. So my question would be, so obviously people still see things sometimes, and sometimes, as you mentioned, they cannot be explained away by just frequency illusion. So what do you think about perhaps it being that those companies just know us so well that they can predict what our plans might be?
I would say that's probably highly likely. So one of my problems when I tried to experiment this, I tried to turn all the privacy features off on my life, and I spent too long turning them on. So apparently Google doesn't know much about me, but because I turn privacy features off on my general life, I have different browsers for running different programs, and I'm the one who, when all those cookie consent goes, no, do not consent, do not consent, do not consent. It takes me bloody ages. I started getting adverts for things that my wife was browsing for because she goes from the same IP address. So, it is fully possible, and there's a whole host of data about us, and it goes down to IP address level and so on. And it's like...
The reason I'm asking is because I remember a case so the story, so it was in the US, and it was one of the large chain shops, so it was Walmart or Target. I don't think...
This is about the pregnancy again. Yes.
So for those unfamiliar, the father of a girl who was 14, 15, were extremely young age to be pregnant to begin with, started receiving the coupons for pregnancy products and for baby products, and he complained about this, and they apologized, and then it turned out that she indeed was pregnant, and she was browsing the pregnancy symptoms.
So that was a case about 5, 6, 7 years ago, which is even probably longer. And it's so a 14-year-old was browsing pregnancy ones because she was pregnant, and they were getting vouchers for it. Now, I've heard of that one before. I've read about that one. I've heard an alternative view of that one, and it's Occam's razor again. What happens if they sent out just loads of packs of vouchers to pregnancy to everyone? Do we know that they never did that? And that's one I've heard. I don't know what's true or not. Or it's likely they could maybe have thought that she was browsing the pregnancy one. It is fully feasible either way.
More questions? Or not? Yes. Good.
You got 1 minute.
Good to have 3 questions. 3 questions. Let's see if we can make it 4.
You're making me finish on time.
So, if this was happening, do you think it matters? And do you think in 10 years' time, if this was happening, will it matter? Given that 10, 20 years ago, if Siri had come into the room and said, you're all going to have a microphone that listens to you all the time in every room in your house, people could probably have said, that's crazy, we'll never do that. That's the world we're in now. Kids are growing up with this, in that world. Are we going to care in 10 years?
I don't know. I'll be honest. The world my children have grown up into is totally different than the world I grew up into. They're used to having permanently connected internet access. Maybe it's not an issue for them. I honestly do not know. Come back in 5 years.
And ask Google.
Yes, and ask Google. I could do it now. Hey, Google.
Which is really probably where I'm going to, because the technology's there.
Yeah.
The ability's there. Surely there's an opportunity that we should be using it. Should we? Is it feasible?
Any philosophers here? I am 100% sure that somewhere, in fact, the person with the microphone might answer this better than me. I'm 100% certain in one university somewhere, a PhD student is putting that in as a thesis, or a request for funding to do that research project.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you once again.